Let's begin with the August 1st nationwide planned protest. President Bola Tinubu is currently meeting with governors from the All Progressives Congress under the aegis of the Progressives Governors Forum at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The meeting, which began at minutes past 1 p.m., follows growing calls for nationwide protest against economic hardship. Although the agenda of Thursday's meeting is unknown, it may be connected to the planned protest scheduled for August 1st to the 10th. Protests organized under the hashtag End Bad Governance, has gained significant traction on social media, even as the organizers remain largely anonymous, with no group officially claiming responsibility. This meeting follows an earlier conclave of the Nigeria Governors Forum on Wednesday night and comes after a last-minute cancellation of the National Economic Council meeting earlier scheduled for noon Thursday. And still on the nationwide protest, the Nigeria Defense Headquarters has said that the proposed protest is intended to replicate what happened in Kenya. Addressing journalists in Abuja on Thursday, the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, said that based on intelligence at its disposal, the proposed nationwide protest would be hijacked by some unscrupulous elements. Buba said the aim of the protest is to show you what is happening in Kenya. He also added that what is happening in Kenya in terms of the protest is violence. As frustration with corruption and bad governance fueled protests across Kenya in recent weeks that resulted in lives lost, injuries and destruction of property, the protests have also put the Nigerian government under edge as the citizens are now planning similar mass demonstrations. News Center's Igbalani Omoni provides further details on this. Take a look.
Kenyans took to the streets for weeks to protest the Kenya Finance Bill, bad governance, high unemployment and corruption. The youth-led movement turned violent at times as police responded, causing at least 24 deaths and hundreds of injuries. Now, Nigerians under the banner of End Bad Governance are planning nationwide protests for next month to press for an end to rampant corruption, insecurity and economic hardship in the country. Citing the violence in Kenya, the government and other stakeholders are worried.
It's definitely undermining the peace and unity of our dear country.
Your crying is right. Your complaint of hardship is right. But is the solution found in carrying placard and lining the streets? Is the solution found in copying a country lesser than us?
If it becomes bloody, we'll be at loss at the end of the day.
The protests, which already have the support of several top Nigerian celebrities, activists and politicians, would demand better governance and restructuring of the country amidst rising inflation, hiking fuel prices and food crisis.
The reason why Nigerians are drowning now is because the only thing they enjoy, that subsidy on petroleum products, which affects everything, you took it away.
These are going to be the aims and objectives of this protest to drive maximum reform.
Some say if well organized and conducted peacefully, the Nigerian faceless protest could put pressure on the government to implement much needed reforms. But fears around proper organization, coordination and control still remain, especially due to the effect of the NSAS protest, which left in its trail destruction from which many victims have still not recovered.
The mistake that Nigerian youths made during NSAS is what Kenyans are making now. Because when they started, like you said, they started well. And on the second or third day, the government had promised that the 5 demands will be met. 5 for 5. And they achieved that. That would have been the end of it. But they expanded their demand. That is like shifting goalposts in the middle of a football game.
If the protest is peaceful, you will see us protecting the protesters for as long as they remain peaceful.
The question remains, will Nigerians succeed in channeling their challenges into a productive protest for change? Will they know when to stop? Or will the country witness the type of mayhem currently rocking Kenya, or even in NSAS protest in 2020?
No one should be left behind.
While the government discourages any protest and is doing everything it can to avert the event, only determined organization and disciplined participation will provide the answer. In Lagos 4 News Central, Igbalani Omani.
We'll move now to very tragic news here. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency on Thursday confirmed the death of 5 site workers on a building that collapsed at Arowo Jobe Estate in the Maryland area of the state. The agency's permanent secretary, Dr. Olufemi Okesayintolu, confirmed this in a statement made available at the news agency of Nigeria. He said the incident happened at number 13 Wilson Mba Street, Arowo Jobe Estate, Maryland, Lagos. He added that the 3 males who were recovered died at the building while they were all site workers. Southern Borno concerned citizens have issued a passionate plea to President Tinubu and the APC leadership, urging them to reconsider the removal of Senator Ali Ndume as chief whip of the Senate. The group, comprising community leaders and stakeholders, emphasized Ndume's unwavering commitment to national service, contributions to the party, and his advocacy for equitable representation of all Nigerians. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Following the announcement of Senator Muhammad Ali Ndume's removal as chief whip of the Senate, a wave of discontent has continued to sweep through southern Borno state. This group, comprising local community leaders, youth organizations, and residents, converged on the NUJ Press Center in Maiduguri to express their dismay over the decision, viewing it as a setback for their representation at the federal level.
Senator Ndume is one of the founding members of the APC in the Senate, and calling for his withdrawal of the membership from the party is unacceptable. This action not only disrespects his contribution to the party, but also signifies that withdrawal of all Southern Borno citizens from the party. I want to categorically state that the APC has deliberately replaced Senator Muhammad Ali Ndume, senator representing the good people of Southern Borno district, with Senator Muhammad Tahir Mongono, representing the good people of Northern Borno at the 10th Assembly, to cause hesitation, puzzlement, confusion, and disunity within the APC party in Borno State. This is not acceptable as far as the unity concerned in Borno State.
The group highlighted the role of Senator Ndume in legislative matters and his advocacy for peace and good governance in the country.
We, the youth of Southern Borno and the Borno State, restate our unified vote of confidence in Senator Ndume and pledge our full support to him. We trust that His Excellency Bola Tinubu, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, through his wisdom, and as he always listens to the concern of the youth, will take our request to consideration and make a decision that reflects the determination and welfare of the youth and the people of Borno State.
The group's spokesperson expressed hope that their appeal will be heard, citing Ndume's experience and dedication as invaluable assets to the nation's governance. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Former Kano State Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso has weighed in on the disagreement between the Dangote refinery management and the Nigerian regulatory authorities. Nigerian regulatory authorities has accused Dangote refinery of rolling out substandard petroleum products, a claim the company has refuted. In his reaction, Kwankwaso blamed what he described as unnecessary fuss on vested interests, saying it could damage investor confidence in the Nigerian economy. The presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party in the 2023 general elections described Dangote's refinery as a crucial asset for the nation's energy needs and economic stability. He also stressed the importance of protecting the asset from any threats that could undermine its operations. In the meantime, stakeholders in Nigeria have tasked citizens to join efforts aimed at ensuring that Nigerians cease to suffer discrimination based on their faith and religious beliefs. Now, this was during a public presentation of a report by Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission, Nigeria's National Orientation Agency, in collaboration with other stakeholders, as part of a strategy developed to monitor freedom of religion and belief in the country. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, has more.
Freedom of religion has for long been of significant concern globally, and Nigeria's history of religious tensions between its two major religions, Christianity and Islam, has led to the loss of lives and properties worth millions in naira. This has also posed threats to Nigeria's coexistence despite legislation to promote religious tolerance among different faiths.
Islam and Christianity preach peace, togetherness, and love for one another and fellow citizens. And I do not think that it is different with the traditional worshippers, I guess. One therefore wonders why our dear country has continued to witness avoidable cases of religious intolerance, which in some cases led to killings.
Given this challenge, Nigeria's Human Rights Commission, the National Orientation Agency, with several other stakeholders, say it has concluded the first phase of a strategy developed to monitor freedom of religion and belief in the country.
To achieve the desired results, the project foresees the creation of a sustainable and operational network aiming at monitoring and reporting violations.
The insights garnered from this survey provide a comprehensive perspective on the current state of religious freedom in Nigeria.
They appeal to citizens to shun acts which promote disunity and animosity in the name of religion.
Appeal to the conscience of citizens that there is no gain in fanning the embers of discrimination and hatred for the sake of religion.
Those who hide under religion to perpetrate wickedness, including killing, destruction of properties, to desist from such vices.
We should collectively be an advocate of sensitization to the general public about the core subject matter, human rights, and the specific topic, violations of religion and belief in Nigeria.
With many conflicts in Nigeria perpetrated on the basis of religion, experts say once religious freedom can be achieved, Nigeria will be a better place. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
The government of Plateau State has earmarked a total of 1 million people for access to treated, clean and portable drinking water in the state. Now, this was made known by engineer Jonathan Mallon, the program coordinator of the Plateau State's Sustainable Urban and Rural Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene Program. Engineer Mallon was speaking during a press briefing he described as one of the emergency measures to ensure that waterborne diseases, including the current outbreak and spread of cholera in some parts of the country, does not filter into Plateau State. Our correspondent Chizoba Aniowe tells us more.
Water is the major essence of livelihood, without which living will be impossible. This is the reason these stakeholders are gathered here to make public measures put in place to ensure the availability of potable water, which is the main drive against waterborne diseases.
The present administration is buying bulk, has approved the purchase of bulk assorted chemicals that will last the lifespan of this administration. And they have started being supplied. The general manager says, telling us the supply is ongoing now. So all the chemicals that the water agencies require for the next 3 years, they are the ones being supplied in the store of the Just Water Services Corporation.
Regulatory agencies in charge of potable and clean water for consumption will henceforth be under government scrutiny to ensure compliance to standards.
People that grant license to the production of sachet or bottled water is NAFDAC. NAFDAC have that responsibility. But we will not fold our arms as a state to continue to allow NAFDAC to issue licenses to people that are not producing water that is basic in terms of it does not meet the standards, and our people are dying. We will not fold our arms. Our law clearly stipulates the regulation of private operators in the water sector. What we are looking forward to is to activate the Water Regulatory Commission in the state. The law has provided for its establishment.
Non-payment of water tariff, theft of water through the bypass of meter, as well as the inefficiency of the State Water Services Corporation will no longer go without punitive measures, as legal actions have been put in place to forestall non-compliance. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyowe.
Development experts in Nigeria have called on leaders in the country and the nation's political elite to draw lessons from Rwanda's healing and reconciliatory journey in the last 30 years in order to avert a looming crisis. Now, this was as they converged on the nation's capital, Abuja, to understudy peace-building efforts in Rwanda, saying that despite Nigeria's civil war sharing a similar experience, issues of marginalization, near absence of government's presence in some parts of the country, insecurity, among others, continues to inhabit the nation's growth. Marvelous Obomanu reports.
The Rwanda genocide of April 1994 between the Tutsi and the Hutu ethnic groups and Nigeria's civil war of July 1967 bear a stark reminder that wars and conflicts only have one end, which is death. 30 years after the genocide and 57 years after Nigeria's civil war, many say Nigeria has not learned its lessons as citizens remain disillusioned, aggrieved, with many openly admitting that wounds of the past remain unhealed.
In terms of policies, legislations, and programs, Nigeria needs to articulate a systemic approach to healing the wounds of the past through dialogue, reconciliation, and affirmative programs that will give a sense of belonging to everyone in the Nigerian project. Across Nigeria today, our human rights situational assessment revealed that insurgency and ethnic-related violence are present in more than 15 states, with the attendant consequences on the loss of lives and properties, as well as massive displacements of populations.
Some believe that in pursuit of peace and reconciliation after conflict, especially in a plural society like Nigeria, genuine efforts must be put in place to lessen the pains of citizens.
As we embark on this journey of reflection and learning, let us commit ourselves to the principle of justice, tolerance, and mutual respect. Let us be reminded that the pursuit of peace and reconciliation is not only merely a task for governments and institutions, but a collective responsibility that involves each one of us.
Some experts who came together in Abuja to look at lessons that Nigeria can draw from Rwanda's healing journey blamed government's failure to address the needs and yearnings of citizens, saying many Nigerians remain disillusioned.
We are here not only to reflect on the horrors of genocide, but also to extract valuable lessons from these dark episodes. We aim to understand how nations can heal and rebuild, ensuring that such atrocities are never repeated.
One major driving force behind the insecurity in Nigeria can be attributed to age-long political, ethnic, and religious divisions which have not been managed or addressed by political actors. Added to this has been the vexed issue of misgovernance, corruption, poverty, and inequalities across the country.
From across the north to the south, there are cries of poverty, hunger, marginalization, deprivation, injustice. And many are attributing all these factors to what is fueling the end bad governance process that is looming in Nigeria. And there are concerns the government is mainly hovering around the symptoms and not addressing the problem. But the big question really is, can Nigeria afford another nationwide protest, taking a cue from what happened during the EndSARS? That's a food for thought. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
The news continues in West Africa, where Burkina Faso's army has condemned recent macabre acts and is actively working to identify those responsible after videos showing the mutilation of corpses, allegedly by military personnel, circulated on social media. The footage depicts acts of extreme cruelty with members of the Defense and Security Forces, FDS, and the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDP, allegedly involved in, according to the General Staff of the military, which has ruled the Sahelian country since 2022. In a statement released on Thursday, the Army announced that efforts are underway to trace the origin and authors of the videos. The footage does not specify the location, date, or identities of the individuals involved, though some are seen wearing military uniforms. 3 international NGOs have alleged that human rights in Niger are in free fall on the eve of the first anniversary of a coup that saw the military seize power. In a joint statement issued on Thursday, Human Rights Watch HRW and Amnesty International, as well as the International Federation for Human Rights FIDH, claim that the military authorities in Niger have cracked down on the opposition, media, and peaceful dissent since the coup. The rights groups reported that the military regime has arbitrarily arrested at least 30 officials from the ousted government of Mohamed Bazoum, including former ministers, members of the presidential cabinet, and individuals close to the disposed president, without granting them due process or fair trial rights. And on to South Africa, the issues of racism at schools have been a concern in the southern country, South Africa, for some time now. Now, the latest one was 12 Pretoria girls, high school pupils, suspended after opening a whites-only WhatsApp group filled with racism and microaggression. Similar allegations have been raised in the past, but the worrying factor is that it seems the measures put in place have not worked satisfactorily. Now, the Save South Africa civic movement is condemning the behavior and calling for a 3-port-leg approach that will first concentrate on the background of the children fingered in the issue. Further, they are calling the authorities to also take into account the allegations levied against the principal and other members of staff. And now joining us to discuss this is Campaign and Communication Director, Save South Africa Civics Movement, Tebago. Are you there, Tebago? Thank you so much for coming on. It's a very sad news that we're getting from out of South Africa. But what more can you tell us about the racism at Pretoria High School and your concerns, especially with the Save South Africa Civic Movement?
Thank you so much, and afternoon to your viewers. You know, this is not a first thing or first instance. It happened before, where there was an issue of hair, the white girls and the black girls arguing about the issue of hair, and then that matter, you know, raised a lot of things. They also mentioned the fact that the principal did not do anything, and then the Gauteng education came on board. They tried to solve the issue, and then we thought that the issue was resolved. But now we are faced with the same situation again. And this actually tells us that, you know what, whatever that they used that time, it never worked. Actually, they tried to manage the situation. It had nothing to do with solving the problem. So we are so furious, but our anger is not necessarily directed to children per se. Our anger is directed to the elders, elderly people, meaning the principals and the staff, who actually perpetuating this type of behavior, because these are kids who learn this behavior from someone else. So actually the adults are an extension of the kids are the extension of the adults. So we are saying we are not happy and we are very angry at what happened.
Yeah, it's about really, really sad when you think about it. But one has to look at the current state of racial tensions in South African schools. What is this like when it comes to racial tensions in the schools, and how has this impacted student learning and well-being? I'm sure it must have impacted it significantly.
Yes, that's true. Because South Africa actually never dealt with this issue of racism. When we took over as black government after '94, it was like everything is okay. So they never paid attention when coming to issues of racism. Because you look at universities, it's happening again. There was an instance where the white boys at university were urinating in the food of black people, and then taking the black women who are working there and moving them around as if they are slaves. So actually, the issue of racism in South Africa is real, and then the government is not ready to deal with this issue. They're just
you're saying it's not just in
racism.
Tobago, so it's not just in schools, in high schools now, it's also in universities as well.
Yes.
I wonder
Also
what it's like for the primary and nursery and kindergarten schools, where it's much more younger children and they are more susceptible to, and they're not able to express themselves.
Yes, and it's unfortunate because, the kindergartens cannot talk. They don't understand what is racism. And to be honest with you, this thing comes from the parents, They're the ones who teach their kids all this nonsense of a black person is nothing. You are superior to black people. So they come here with that attitude, and really it's not good. Even now, AfriForum is building a school. It's a Afrikaners only institution. What the hell is that? What nonsense is that one? Where in democratic country, where Madiba came and Tutu came with this thing of Rainbow Nation. We are only the black people are the only ones who are focusing on these issues of Rainbow Nation. But when coming to the white people, it's a different case. AfriForum is building an institution, only white people. So what can we say about that? But the government is there, the black government is in power, but nothing is happening.
And it begs to ask the question that if the government is not addressing this, what more the teachers and the parents of these schools, and seeing how this racism and this microaggression cases are being perpetrated, what do you think they should be doing better and differently? My final question, because we're pressed for time.
Yes. No, it's very easy. When you want to deal with issues of racism, take racism and put it in the curriculum. Teach the children about racism. Show them where we're coming from and the impact of racism. So if you put that in curriculum, I think that will be much better. So don't just say it in the media and the president comes and say no to racism. Only they react when there's a situation. Because I can tell you, after this incidents, there'll be more coming. And then there will be speeches, political speeches about the very same thing. So we are very angry, but we said we are giving the Gauteng department to deal with the issue. Failure to do that, we will take the matter forward.
Well, we do hope that change is near, and I hope that all the right stakeholders and the teachers are looking at this and wanting change as well. But Bogo, many thanks. We appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you so much, and also to your viewers. Thank you.
And that's Tobago Campaign and Communication Director, Save South Africa Civic Movement. Move away from that now, and now to Ethiopia, where the death toll from a devastating landslide in southern part of the country has risen to 257. The United Nations said, warning it could increase to up to 500. In a statement citing local authorities, the UN's humanitarian agency, OCHA, said the death toll has risen to 257. Humanitarian agencies scrambled to rush emergency relief aid to the stricken community after the deadliest search incident recorded in Ethiopia, a country highly vulnerable to climate-related disasters.
አባትና እናትን ይዤ እሷን ይዤ እንደዛ አድርገን ሸክመን እንደዛ ሆነን እሷን ይዤ ወደ ላይ አሳለፍኩኝ። እኔ እዛ ሁለተኛ ሶስተኛ ሲሄድ በቃ ልጆችና እኔን ትንሽ ሁለት ልጆች ይቀርቷል። lelo chelo
asaitana ke tsagi to be bokidi ke tsagi dan naitara tara de naitara naita tagi to be naita gitara.
And switch our focus now to out of the pond, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called on the United States to fast-track military aid to his country to help end the war in Gaza as he addresses a U.S. Congress divided by the war. Washington has become increasingly alarmed by the humanitarian toll of Israel's 9-month campaign in the narrow coastal territory, and protests in Israel and the United States have been ratcheting up pressure on Netanyahu. The Prime Minister hit back at his critics in a speech at the U.S. Capitol in which he accused Tehran of funding and promoting U.S.-based anti-Israel protest.
Fast-tracking U.S. military aid can dramatically expedite an end to the war in Gaza and help prevent a broader war in the Middle East. In World War II, as Britain fought on the front lines of civilization, Winston Churchill appealed to Americans with these famous words: "Give us the tools and we'll finish the job." Today, as Israel fights on the front line of civilization, I too appeal to America. Give us the tools faster, and we'll finish the job faster. The day after we defeat Hamas.
And joining us now is our international correspondent, Afia Hagan. Afia, it's quite interesting when you watch the applause that he received there, quite thunderous inside Congress, but it seems to be another story entirely outside of that applause and speech. What can you tell us?
Right, Benjamin Netanyahu getting 7 standing ovations during that speech in Congress. However, it wasn't all the way across the board. You had about 39 members of Congress, mostly Democrats, who were not in attendance as well. And of course, throughout the speech, you had Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib, who is the first Palestinian American member of Congress. And throughout the speech, she was holding a placard that said "guilty of genocide" and "war criminal." Outside of Congress, you had some really quite severe protests. Now, they weren't violent. There was some peaceful protests in there, but you did have burning of American flags, Palestinian flags being raised in their place, and some pretty terrible anti-Semitic graffiti was sprayed around as well. So not everybody is happy to see Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressing Congress in the way that he did. Now, back home in Israel, families of the hostages, some who have been freed and some who are still held inside Gaza, gathered to see the speech at an area known as Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. Now, they listened to the national anthem and then dispersed as Netanyahu continued his address. They were pretty upset, actually, that he was giving this speech in Washington, feeling that he's not doing enough to bring those hostages home. And perhaps this is all about him grandstanding and forwarding his political agenda.
Can you tell us some of the main highlights of this speech for him calling for aid? What's the main highlights of this speech?
Yes, this was all about him selling this war that Israel is waging against Gaza. We all know why it started, but it's about him continuing the mission, as it were. So he vowed total victory in Gaza and warned about the threat from Iran and denouncing the US protesters at the same time, calling them Iran's useful idiots. He also said that America, the true challenge to America was the Middle East, was Iran, and it has to conquer Iran to be able to be successful. He also implied that in Rafah, he only thought a few people had been killed. Now, we know that the assault on Rafah has been quite severe. He said that there was only an incident in which a few people had been killed, but we know at least 45 people were killed at a camp for displaced Palestinians after that airstrike and injured more than 200. In the same week, you had 29 Palestinians killed in 2 separate Israeli attacks. And let's not forget that almost 40,000, if not more people that have been killed in that conflict, even if you minus the number of Hamas fighters from that number, it's about 1% of the population in Gaza have been killed in this conflict. So there was definitely about Israel pushing for America to realize that Iran is the problem and Iran is the one that is driving all this, and saying that, the axis of evil, basically Iran is on it, and Israel and America have to get together and stay together to be able to keep safe against this instigator, which is Iran.
Interesting. Plenty of finger pointing there. But we noticed that the presidential candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris was noticeably missing from Congress there. Do tell, how might her approach to the Israel-Gaza conflict differ from Joe Biden's?
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris was at another campaign event that she had scheduled. It was a sorority event, and she didn't want to miss that. So she did miss out on the Congress address. She is meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later on today. But she has been lockstep with Joe Biden up until now. She's also been quite quiet, I suppose, when it comes to the Israel-Gaza conflict. She has a few times said that we have to have sympathy for the Palestinians and for those who support the cause. But this is the time where she will be able to define how she wants to take her views on this conflict forward. Now, will she continue to be in lockstep with Joe Biden, who has, this very long, sometimes fractious relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, or will she strike out on her own? Will she take a different side? It all remains to be seen. Now, it is thought that her husband, Doug Emhoff, who is Jewish, will have quite a bit of an influence on her in this. Last night he popped up on a call which was hosted by the Jewish Democratic Council of America and Jewish Women for Kamala, and he said the Vice President has been and will be a strong supporter of Israel and a secure and democratic Jewish state, and she will always ensure that Israel can defend itself, period, because that's who Kamala is. That's according to her husband. But her stepdaughter, Doug Emhoff's daughter, has been at pro-Palestinian marches. So she has a lot to consider when it comes to her stance on this particular conflict, which we know can be very, very polarizing and very divisive.
Very polarizing and divided, interestingly. And honestly, when we see the next debate between herself and Donald Trump, and that question is posed and asked to her, I wonder how she would approach it and just talk about her own views on the matter. But again, Afia, many thanks for doing this. We appreciate you for coming on. And that's Afia Egan, our international correspondent. And that's all for the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. President Tinubu, APC governors, others in closed-door talks over planned protests. Burkina Faso's army has condemned inhumane acts in shared videos. We also told you that Ethiopia landslide death toll has risen to 257, as UN says the number could reach up to 500. Now, remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith, Atibi.